Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we are going to cool and heat our greenhouse. There's a lot of other things we want to do inside of our greenhouse, but before we can do that, we need to add some sort of temperature control. I think we're going to start by putting some steam turbine here, maybe with a cold box, a hot box, and depending on whether the room in question needs to heat or cool, that's the liquid that will turn on and go through this area. It's going to take me a minute to figure out the design. I got a couple of ideas. Let me see what I can come up with. Okay, this is what we've come up with. I don't know if this is my best idea ever or my worst idea ever. But here's how it looks so far. We're going to have a steam turbine up here that is going to cool a thermo aqua tuner. And this thermo aqua tuner is going to make this a very hot box, and it's going to make this a very cold box. The hot box is going to be connected to this area. The cold box is going to be connected to this area. This area here is going to have a bunch of chilly water in it. This is going to have a bunch of hot gas in it, namely probably oxygen. Then you come over here. When we have this super cold box and it puts the and it makes the liquid in here super cold, we can then circle that liquid around the greenhouse. Okay, we've only got like a part of it started right now. And it'll circle all the way through the greenhouse and then get back and get dumped into here to get re-chilled. Might actually move this over here so more of the chilly water gets taken out first. So what this little system here is, which who knows if it even works yet, if the temperature in a room, so we can use this for an example, right? Here's a thermosensor. And because this is bristle blossom and it likes 5 to 30, we'll put it on, say, 25. Now, if the temperature is below 25, it'll send a green signal to the gas shutoff. And what this will do is send hot gas through here to heat the room back up. If it's below 25, it'll then turn this NOT gate to green, turning this liquid shutoff on, which it will then dump cold water throughout the room. So the idea is that there'll always either be hot air or cold water being radiated throughout the room. Now, this is by no means a finished product. This is a lot of piping, and we would need one of these little setups here for every individual room, because every individual room would need its own separate, temperature control. For instance, right here, the millwood right now is too hot. It needs to be 10 to 30. So we're going to do the same little setup by throwing down a thermosensor. And then we can find our wonderful NOT gate. Put it down there. Did we just make that NOT gate out of gold? We do not want to do that. Where's our NOT gate? On copper. And then we wire it all up. Straight across here. Down, straight across. So, in theory, this should work, but there's a lot of problems. First of all, we chose to use gas and liquid instead of two liquids. The only reason was because of the pipes being stackable. Otherwise, there'd be a hot liquid pipe and a cold liquid pipe to and from every single box, and it would get way too much piping here. So I figured we're going to have to do a whole lot less heating than we are cooling, and liquid's a better coolant. So I'm thinking it would be better to have the heat being provided by the gas, radiant gas pipes. We will see, though. Let me keep getting this finished up, and we'll touch base again. Okay, we've made a bit more progress, and it's even more confusing than it was. But I think we've actually simplified the design a little bit. Here's our gas pipe intakes. Now, you can see, well, I don't know if you can see it. It looks awfully confusing now that I'm looking at it again. So the gas pump here we'll take the hot gas and put it on this main intake line right here. The intake lines will either go through where it's not getting heat because the gas meter shutoff is on or has a green signal, or it'll radiate heat through here. And then this is kind of the output leg. The output leg comes all the way around, all the way around, all the way around, gets insulated because it's going to go through this cold area, and then dumps back into the hot gas tank. So we kind of now have got an input side and an output side, and the outputs come around and dump back into their original tanks. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, so we almost have this thing primed and ready. Now it's just time to put the water solution in for the thermal aqua tuner and the steam turbine. I think we'll be able to fire it on. Now this one, it's stacked with a bunch of different issues. So if one thing goes down wrong here, I have to break into each and every single area just to get to it. So I'm really hoping we didn't make a mistake here. Yeah, it's gonna be a close one. We've got 20 kilos of oxygen in here. It's going to need more as soon as this whole system has to charge. We built a lot of piping, and it's just as bad when you look over on the liquid pipe side. Now, I'm sure there is going to be issues with this, but you know, how the water and everything flows here, it's not always the most, how do we say, reliable? So I'm not sure if our flow system here is going to work. We are going to see. I've got some bridges here. There's bridges going here. The bridges all are in the right spot. We also filled the aqua tuna line with ethanol. Why ethanol? Well, it just has the great, I brought some in from old Cupola. It's got great freezing point. You can go all the way down to a negative 114. The iffy thing is the evaporation point's at 78. So you got to be a little bit careful to make sure it doesn't evaporate, but the freezing point is exactly what we need for this sort of mid-game cooling. Now, just as soon as the dupes fill this with a couple of different types of liquid, we're going to use polluted water and water. We can then fire on the thermo aqua tuner once we have the steam turbine built. Let's see how this goes. All right, this is finally frozen over, and it looks like I didn't quite have enough water in here to really to brick it out, just like the bottom here, which is unfortunate, but it still doesn't matter. The real meat and potatoes that we wanted was this bottom row, and that's because we're now going to take a mechanized airlock. Beautiful. And then we're going to add an automation wire from this temperature gauge, and basically what it's going to say is, hey, when the water in here is too warm, dump more chill into it. We're probably going to add a couple temperature shift plates throughout just to make sure that the cold gets from here all the way down. So let's see what we can do. What do we have here that's a good temperature shift plate? Maybe the gold? I think it's going to have to be the gold for now. So we'll add a couple here, here, and then here. I think that looks good. It uses up a ton of our gold, but I think it'll work well. And then we'll be ready to finally dump some water into this chamber and get it nice and chilled. All right, with about, I don't know, 85% confidence, I can say this system is up and running. Like we talked about before, we have the thermo aqua tuner providing us a chill box and a hot box. All right, this chill is just where the thermo aqua tuner is going to keep dumping that chill in, and as this water containment area needs it, the door will shut and keep making this colder. Right now we have it set on, hey, if it's below 25 degrees you can pump, which it should basically always stay below 25 degrees once we get it set to that point. And then we also have it at saying, hey, keep chilling down to 15 degrees. If it goes below 15 degrees, these doors will open and it'll stop dumping chill across the doors. Now, for those of you who don't know, the reason why that mechanic works is because when this door opens, it creates a vacuum. And so you don't get any temperature shift, you don't get any temperature transfer from one side to the other. Now, it took a while playing around with both the ventilation and the plumbing. Now, this kind of kills the computer, so I don't think I'm going to do this setup again. As you can see, which I do have it on slow speed right now, just so that it's easier to show, the oxygen comes back in through this return and goes out. Now, I was having problems with the pipes. This is the only configuration that I could get working. I could not have the pipe go directly into this input. So this is now working. Oxygen is flowing. And it's doing a good enough job. As you can see, if we pause it here, the oxygen is coming out at 114 degrees, which makes sense because it's connected by metal tiles to this Aqua Tuna steam chamber. And when you look at it coming back in, on this side of it, it's coming back in at 37 degrees. So those areas that are needing the heat are getting the heat. Now, it's not all the right areas quite yet. We had to put some insulated piping onto these farm tiles because we didn't want to superheat these farm tiles over time. Even though they're not radiant, they'd still transfer some heat. But in here's a nice little test chamber. So because this temperature of the room wants to be 60 degrees, it's going to keep the gas coming through the radiation pipes, and it will eventually keep dumping heat. You can already see that there is a difference in temperature here. You can see it's about 40 degrees in this chamber, and right below it, it's only 38. It's not going to be a quick moving process. And the reason why is I actually had to vent oxygen from our little oxygen chamber, because when it was maxed out at 20 kilos, the high pressure gas vent would stop releasing oxygen and it would create a backlog in the entire system. Now it seems to be flowing much more decent. There are some flaws in this system though. For instance, just because of the way the pipe mechanics work, this section's going to get heat and cool about 4 or 5 times more often than this section. And that's because of the way mechanics work. It dumps one off of here, then here, then here, then here, then here, and so on and so forth. So it's going to take a while to transfer all the temperature around. So this is probably not the most efficient. I'm just happy it's actually working. So you can see also on the liquid side that it's doing its thing. Because this area needs to chill, it's dumping the liquid in here, and the liquid's responsible for chilling, and the gas is responsible heating. The last thing we have to do on this go around is I didn't want to provide radiant piping for this entire strand, mostly because we're just running out of it flat out. But we can still provide a couple here and go back to making more gold. Let's see. Even 99 should do just fine. We're still at 33 degrees in this pit. It can handle it. But yeah, you can imagine how much gas piping and plumbing this took. And all the yellow's gold. We also made all of this. The liquid pump in here out of gold. We had to make this gas pump out of steel because it could potentially go up to 125 degrees. So it did take a lot of material. So I'm going to let this run for probably 20, 30 cycles outside of recording and see how it goes. This is probably not going to last the test of time. It is transferring temperature around, which was the goal. It's just probably a little bit, we'll say, inefficient. Because think about it, right here, that one little blob is what's dumping heat into here. Or in this case, chill. And then when you go over to the gas, these little gas blobs are what's dumping heat. So the closer you are to the center here, the more heat and chill efficiency you are getting. Now we could probably help this out by putting maybe 2 gas pumps in here. That would also help move more air. And the same thing in here. If we put 2 liquid pumps, it would help move more liquid. Some other quick updates on the base. Our nice little food system from an episode or two ago has finally finished, really get going. As you can see, everything in here is deep frozen. We're up to, I don't know, 1.25 million calories. That kind of works. Over on Goopola, everything's pretty much getting cleaned out. We've been pumping through this. Obviously, we're not going to break into this natural gas geyser. There's some other things we can do in the future, like there's a carbon dioxide vent, but we've been doing some digging and some sweeping here and there. We've been dumping more and more polluted water into here, keeping this going, and that way they stay with polluted water, and that way they can keep feeding the bog buckets. You can see they're still on 20,000 calories, so they're doing just fine too. We moved the food storage over here into a ration box, which is inside of a sterile atmosphere, being the carbon dioxide. So it's nice and chill. It's not deep frozen because it's only -10, but it still does a lot better than sitting out in the polluted oxygen. So with our greenhouse sort of temperature controlled, yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to say that yet. But with temperature control up and running, we have a couple of test beds here. The idea is we want this bristle blossom chamber to go down to, what do we say, 25 degrees. So it's going to keep dumping chill into here until it gets down to 25 degrees. So we'll see if it's actually able to do that. And then the same way over here, we're kind of testing this section by trying to dump heat into it, trying to get it up to 60 degrees and seeing how long it takes for these rooms to stabilize based on what we set them at with our cool little thermostats. I think next episode, I think we're finally ready to break into space. We've been doing decent with the research. As you can see, we just dumped off another 96 rads. These have 537 apiece. We've been knocking out a lot of the research. You can see a lot of our tier 3 research is almost done. We have just a couple left, and then we're going to have to get into some beautiful orbital research, which means it's time to go to space. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too. Hope you had fun in this episode, and yeah, don't try this one at home. It doesn't work very well, but hey, at least we gave it a go, and we're going to see. It might just take, 20, 30 decades to actually temperature control the rooms based on this method. I hope you had fun. I know I did too. Talk to you soon.